Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, unfortunately, we got a couple news stories in the news today that are not very good about a gentleman who was out swimming with his family from a cruise ship excursion and something happened. We also have another report of another man going overboard on another MSC cruise ship, the third person going overboard on MSC in the past 45 days, roughly one every 2 weeks. That's not good news. We have record-breaking years for the cruise lines, especially the Port of Miami and Southampton for another place. And then we have New Zealand cruise industry is trying to get the government there to provide safe cleaning zones for cruise ships so that they are able to get their hulls cleaned. And not only cruise ships, all ships, because they don't want a repeat of last year of all those cruise ships being turned away. Let's get some of the bad news out of the way first. We have a 55-year-old passenger who was on a cruise with his family, went swimming down at Radio Beach in Bimini, and unfortunately he was swimming along with another family member when that family member lost sight of them and was later found actually on shore unresponsive. So the waves basically pushed him back onto shore. Medical teams arrived, CPR was performed, they rushed him to a nearby clinic, but unfortunately he was deemed, unresponsive and passed away at the clinic. So yeah, 55 years old, very young to have that issue. If you've ever been to Radio Beach, you do know that the waves can be pretty strong there. And it could be a case where he started to struggle and, it's hard to say, but wow, 55 years old. Condolences go out. Imagine being there on a nice, friendly vacation with your family and you lose sight of somebody you're with and then you see them on shore. That's terrifying to me. So condolences go out to the family. Again, and condolences also go out to another person and their family who went overboard on the MSC Princess. I think that's how you pronounce it. They were on their way to the big New Year's celebration going on in Rio. I think 8 different cruise ships showed up there to watch the big fireworks display, much like they have huge displays there like they do in China and Hong Kong and Singapore and New York City, right? Australia. They always have these big, huge fireworks displays, and Rio is one of them. That's where this cruise was on its way to when it was reportedly that the gentleman went overboard from his balcony in his cabin. MSC saying they have evidence and film showing that he went over of his own accord. They did stop the boat. They dropped boats looking for the person, and the Brazilian Coast Guard also went looking for the gentleman, but unfortunately he was not found and the search was now called off. So yeah, not two great news stories to start off the new year. Let's hope we don't have too many of those stories this year. We do have some good news in the cruising industry, and that was the Port of Miami had a record-breaking year. They had more business and earned more revenue in that port than they've ever done before. And guess what? 2024 looks like they're going to break this year's record with the arrival of such large ships again coming into port as the Icon of the Seas, which is on its way from Europe as we speak to start its inaugural sailing on the 20th of this month. So yeah, good news for the Port of Miami. Southampton, one of the premier cruising ports in Europe, well, they also had a record-breaking year, so much so that the port area itself earned over £1 billion which in Canadian dollars is like $2 billion. So yeah, they made an awful lot of money, and that's one of the reasons you see that they're willing to put up with some of the traffic there in Southampton is because it generates so much revenue for the city, and they earn, you know, they can use that money in different areas. It doesn't all go to the cruise port. So yeah, good news there for the cruising industry. It's good when you see record-breaking years. It only means that things are busy, but it also means that things are able to be priced pretty high because they're so busy that we all want to go. We're willing to pay whatever we have to get away from it all and get on a cruise. And so we're seeing those prices starting already in 2024, ticking upwards again. Wait a minute, Don, this was supposed to be a good news story. Good news is cruising is alive and well, and a lot of people in 2020, if you remember, didn't know if cruising would even survive, but it's glad to see it's doing well and actually thriving. In 2024 looks like it's going to be busier than ever. One of those places that it gets really busy is this time of year over in Australia and New Zealand. And if you remember last year, they brought in new biosecurity regime that basically, you know, you had to meet these standards. Your cruise ship hulls were going to be inspected. You had to get your paperwork in to visit New Zealand. And this actually came into effect just before the pandemic hit, and then all the cruise ships shut down, and everyone kind of forgot about it. But then, once cruise ships started to kick up again, and they started those security measures and checking it again, all these cruise ships and cargo ships and even ferries going across failed the biosecurity and were not allowed into New Zealand waters. This year so far, only one ship has failed to get in there. And they did try and get cleaning done ahead of time, but it was too rough of seas. And that's because Southern Hemisphere ships all don't really have a place to go to get cleaning. They rely on doing it in water, in zoned off areas that they're allowed to do it in, where if you're coming from the Northern Hemisphere, most ships are able to get done at cleaning facilities in Singapore and in Indonesia. But the Southern Hemisphere, well, you guys have got to figure out a way. And there's basically a lack of cleaning facilities for ship hulls. And the busier it gets, the worse that situation gets. So the New Zealand tourism cruising industry is trying to get the government to create safe cleaning facilities for these ships in areas. They say you can even do it in water areas. There's different ways to do it, where when you clean the hull, everything doesn't just drop to the bottom. They actually put out drop nets under the ship, and everything that drops down gets collected in the nets and then collected and disposed of that way into other areas. So they're looking at different alternatives, and they're trying to get the New Zealand government on board with creating this, because it's, like I said, it's not only affecting cruise ships, it also affects the cargo ships coming in and the ferries, etc. Also private yachts, all that try to get into New Zealand, and it can be a very big hit on the smaller town communities with the tourism, because cruise ships, believe it or not, tend to go out to some of these smaller communities a lot more than people who fly into New Zealand. They tend to stay in the big cities or go to the big popular tourist destinations. The smaller ships and the cruise ships tend to also have excursions out to smaller towns, you know, where you would go see, you know, farms and stuff like that. Well, if the cruise ships don't come, then they don't get that business, and it's actually a big part of the community's income. So they're looking at alternative ways, and we'll see if the New Zealand government is responsive to that. So like I said, so far this season, only one ship turned away. So that's good news, because last year at this time, there was about 15 ships that were turned away. So a much better result this year. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.